Sarah Chen sat in the back corner of the lecture hall, her dark hair hanging like a curtain between her and the rest of the class. While other students chatted and laughed, she kept her eyes fixed on her tablet, taking notes with mechanical precision. Professor Valdris, a tall Zenthorian with silver scales that caught the artificial light, droned on about interstellar navigation theory. The key to successful deep space tracking, Valdris explained, his reptilian voice carrying across the room, lies in understanding the quantum signatures left by spacecraft engines. Most species can detect these trails for perhaps 72 standard hours before they fade beyond recognition. Sarah's fingers paused over her tablet. 72 hours. She almost smiled but caught herself. If only they knew. The Galactic Academy attracted students from hundreds of worlds, but humans were still relatively new to the cosmic stage. Only 50 years had passed since first contact, and humanity was eager to prove itself worthy of joining the greater galactic community. Sarah had earned her place here through test scores that amazed even the admission board, but she kept that achievement to herself. Miss Chen, Professor Valdris's voice cut through her thoughts. Perhaps you could share your thoughts on long-range tracking limitations. Every head in the lecture hall turned toward her. Sarah felt her cheeks burn red, but she stood anyway, her voice barely above a whisper. Well, sir, most detection methods rely on traditional sensor arrays that can only process certain frequency ranges. But quantum disturbances don't just disappear. They cascade through dimensional layers that most species haven't learned to read yet. The professor's scaled brow ridge rose slightly. An interesting theory. However, even our most advanced Queth detection matrices cannot extend beyond the established time frame. Sarah wanted to explain that the Queth had been looking in the wrong direction entirely. That their sensors were tuned for linear tracking while the real signatures spiraled through folded space. Instead, she simply nodded and sat back down, pulling her hair forward again. After class, she gathered her things quickly and headed for the corridor. The Academy's halls bustled with students from across the galaxy. Tall, ethereal Elari floated past on gossamer wings, while stocky Corvan engineers stomped by in their environmental suits. Sarah weaved between them, invisible as always. Chen. The voice belonged to Marcus Webb, another human student from her tactical strategy class. He jogged to catch up, his military academy bearing obvious in every step. Wait up, she paused reluctantly. Marcus was everything. She wasn't confident, outgoing, the kind of person who commanded attention just by walking into a room. Hi Marcus, I wanted to thank you for those notes you shared last week. Saved my grade in xenobiology. He grinned, showing perfect teeth. Listen, a bunch of us are heading to the simulation center tonight. Want to join? They've got some new tracking scenarios loaded. Sarah shook her head automatically. Thanks, but I have studying to do. Come on. You're already at the top of every class. Live a little. Marcus's expression grew more serious. You know, you'd probably surprise people if you gave them a chance to know you. If only he understood how much she had to hide. Maybe another time. She escaped to her quarters, a small single room that she'd specifically requested. The walls displayed a view of Earth's Pacific Ocean, waves rolling endlessly under a sunset sky. Sarah touched a panel, and the windows shifted to show real-time feeds from home. Somewhere down there, her family was going about their normal lives, completely unaware of what she could do. Her communication device chimed softly. A message from Dr. Yolanda Harrison, her mentor and the only other human faculty member at the Academy. Conference Room 7. Urgent. Sarah's stomach tightened. Dr. Harrison only called emergency meetings when something serious had happened. She changed into her formal Academy uniform and made her way through the winding corridors to the administrative sector. Conference Room 7 was one of the secure meeting spaces, equipped with privacy shielding that prevented any kind of surveillance or eavesdropping. Dr. Harrison was already there, along with Admiral Kresh, a massive Tauran whose thick carapace bore the scars of countless battles. Two other beings Sarah didn't recognize sat across from them. One appeared to be a crystalline Vaxi, the other a cloud of energy contained within a humanoid environmental suit. Sit down, Sarah. Dr. Harrison's voice was tense. We have a situation. Admiral Kresh leaned forward, his forearms clasped before him on the table. 3 days ago, the cargo vessel Bright Fortune disappeared while en route from the mining colonies to Centaurus Station. The ship was carrying a full load of trilithium ore and a crew of 47 beings from 12 different species. The crystalline Vaxi spoke in harmonics that the universal translator rendered as a melodic voice. Our search teams have found no trace of the vessel. It simply vanished from all sensor networks simultaneously. Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. Pirates? That's what we thought initially. The energy being said, its voice crackling with static. However, analysis of the ship's last known position suggests something far more troubling. The disappearance pattern matches 17 other missing vessels over the past 6 months. Dr. Harrison pulled up a holographic star chart that showed shipping lanes throughout this sector of the galaxy. Red dots marked the positions where ships had vanished. Each disappearance follows the same pattern. Ships drop off sensors suddenly, with no distress signals or debris fields. Our best tracking teams have found nothing. Admiral Kresh's mandibles clicked ominously. The Galactic Council is beginning to panic. If commercial shipping isn't safe, the entire economy of this sector could collapse. We need to find these ships and determine what's happening to them. Sarah looked around the table, confused about why she was here. I don't understand. I'm just a student. The crystalline Vaxi chimed softly. Your professors have been watching your work, Miss Chen. Your theoretical understanding of tracking principles exceeds that of most graduates. However, this situation requires more than theory. Dr. Harrison activated another display, this one showing Sarah's academic records. Your test scores in spatial analysis and pattern recognition are off the charts. In fact, they're so high that some of our colleagues are having trouble believing them. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She'd been careful to moderate her performance, to make her abilities seem exceptional but not impossible. Apparently, she hadn't been careful enough. Admiral Kresh stood and began pacing, a habit that made the floor tremble slightly under his massive weight. We're forming a special task force to investigate these disappearances. The team will consist of our best tracking specialists and tactical experts from multiple species. We want you to join them. Me? Sarah's voice came out as a squeak. I'm 19 years old. I've never even been off station. Age means little when lives are at stake. The energy being stated. Your theoretical knowledge could provide insights our experienced teams have missed. Dr. Harrison leaned forward. Sarah, I know this seems overwhelming, but you have abilities that could make the difference here. I wouldn't recommend you for this assignment if I didn't believe you could handle it. Sarah stared at the holographic star chart, her mind already working through the patterns she could see in the disappearance locations. The official reports would show random distribution, but she could detect the subtle spiral arrangement that others would miss. These weren't random attacks. Someone was following a very specific plan. What kind of team are we talking about? She asked quietly. Admiral Kresh's expression lightened slightly. You would be part of a 6-member unit aboard the scout vessel Starbound. The team leader is Commander Thane Murdoch, one of our most experienced tactical officers. You'd also work with Kizara, a Queth tracking specialist with over 30 years of experience, and Dr. Willem Oresh, a Zenthorian physicist who designed many of our current sensor systems. Sarah's hands were shaking slightly. Everything in her wanted to refuse, to stay safely hidden in her classes and her quiet room. But 47 beings were missing, possibly dead, and more ships would disappear if nothing was done. The team departs in 72 hours, the Vaxi chimed. You would need to pack quickly and prepare for an extended mission. Doctor, Harrison touched Sarah's shoulder gently. I can't make this decision for you. But I will say this, sometimes the greatest discoveries come from those who see things differently than everyone else. Sarah closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, she could see the paths the missing ships had taken, trace their routes through space like glowing threads only she could perceive. Okay, she said quietly. I'll do it. Admiral Kresh's mandibles spread in what she'd learned was a Tauran smile. Excellent. Report to Docking Bay 7 at 0800 hours, station time, day after tomorrow. Commander Murdoch will brief you on the mission parameters. As the meeting broke up and the others filed out, Dr. Harrison lingered behind. Sarah, are you sure about this? Once you're out there, you won't be able to hide your abilities anymore. Sarah looked at the star chart again, seeing the invisible patterns that connected the disappearances. Maybe it's time to stop hiding. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. Sarah packed her few belongings, downloaded star charts and technical manuals to her portable devices, and attended briefing sessions on shipboard protocols. She also spent hours in the Academy's database, researching everything she could find about the missing vessels and their crews. The night before departure, she stood at her window watching the stars. Somewhere out there, people were trapped or dead because of something that could have been prevented. She thought about her parents back on Earth, about the quiet life she'd always planned for herself, about the secret she'd kept hidden since childhood. When Sarah was 7 years old, she'd gotten lost in the woods behind her family's house. Search teams had looked for her for 3 days while she survived on berries and stream water. When they finally found her, she'd told them about the animals she'd followed, how she could sense their movement through the forest even when they were hidden. Her parents had assumed it was imagination, the kind of story a frightened child would tell, but it hadn't been imagination. Sarah could see the trails that all living things left behind them, the quantum signatures of their existence that lingered in space-time like footprints in sand. She could track anything, anywhere, no matter how much time had passed or how well they tried to hide. She'd never told anyone the truth about what she could really do. Tomorrow, that would change. Sarah activated her communication device and sent a message to her parents on Earth. She kept it simple, telling them she'd been selected for a special assignment and might be out of contact for a while. She didn't mention that she was about to leave the safety of the Academy to hunt something that had already made 17 ships disappear without a trace. At 0700 hours the next morning, Sarah stood outside Docking Bay 7 with her single duffel bag. The massive hangar doors were sealed, but she could sense the activity beyond them. 3 life signs waited inside the crew that would become her team. She took a deep breath and pressed the door control. Time to show the galaxy what humans could really do. The docking bay was enormous, easily large enough to hold a dozen ships the size of the one docked at its center. The Starbound was sleek and angular, designed for speed and stealth rather than heavy combat. Its hull gleamed with sensor arrays and communication equipment that would let them track signals across vast distances. Commander Thane Murdoch stood at the base of the loading ramp. He was human, but unlike any human Sarah had encountered at the Academy. Tall and lean, with prematurely gray hair and scars that told stories of battles fought in distant systems. His uniform bore decorations from conflicts Sarah had only read about in history texts. "You must be Chen." His voice was gravelly, like someone who'd spent years breathing recycled air. "I'll be honest, I wasn't thrilled when they told me my tracking specialist was going to be a teenage Academy student." Sarah straightened her shoulders. "Yes, sir. However," Murdoch continued, "Admiral Kresh doesn't make recommendations lightly. If he says you're worth having on this mission, then you're worth having." He gestured toward the ship. "Come aboard. Time to meet the rest of the team." The Starbound's interior was cramped but efficient. Every surface served multiple purposes, and Sarah could tell this ship had been designed by people who understood long missions in deep space. Murdoch led her through the main corridor to a circular room that served as both briefing area and mess hall. 2 beings waited inside. The first was obviously Kizara, the Queth tracking specialist. The Queth were tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large multifaceted eyes that could perceive across multiple light spectrums simultaneously. Kizara's expression was politely neutral, but Sarah could sense skepticism in her posture. The second team member was Dr. Willem Oresh, the Zenthorian physicist. Unlike Professor Valdris, this Zenthorian was older. His silver scales dulled with age and his movements careful and deliberate, but his yellow eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Kizara, Dr. Oresh, meet Sarah Chen," Murdoch said. "She'll be our human tracking consultant." Kizara's voice carried the musical quality common to her species. "With respect, Commander, I've been tracking quantum signatures since before this human was born. What could she possibly contribute to our mission?" Dr. Oresh was more diplomatic. "I've reviewed Miss Chen's academic records. Her theoretical knowledge is impressive for someone so young." Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks again, but forced herself to speak. "I understand your concerns. I know I don't have your experience or training, but I might see things differently than you expect." "Different how?" Kizara asked. Before Sarah could answer, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "All crew to stations. We have clearance for departure. Next stop, the Meridian shipping lane where the Bright Fortune was last seen." Murdoch pointed Sarah toward one of the acceleration couches. "Strap in. First jump is always rough." As Sarah secured her harness, she felt the ship's engines rumble to life. Through the viewports, she could see the Academy station falling away below them, growing smaller until it was just another point of light among the stars. The transition to faster-than-light travel hit like a physical blow. Reality twisted around the ship as they slipped into the space between spaces, following paths mapped by civilizations older than humanity. Sarah gritted her teeth and held on, feeling the familiar sensation of her enhanced senses trying to process information that normal perception couldn't handle. When they dropped back into normal space 6 hours later, they were surrounded by empty darkness. The nearest star was a faint point of light, and the shipping lane was nothing more than an invisible highway marked by navigation beacons. "Sensors are online," Dr. Orcs reported from his station. "Beginning scans for quantum residue." Sarah watched the displays fill with data spectral analyses, particle readings, gravitational measurements. All the standard tools for finding traces of ships that had passed through this region. After an hour of searching, the screens showed nothing useful. "The trail is too old," Kazara announced. "Whatever happened here, it occurred more than 72 hours ago. The quantum signature has dispersed beyond our detection threshold." Commander Murdoch looked frustrated. "So we're starting from nothing." Sarah unbuckled her harness and moved to the sensor station. "May I?" Kazara stepped aside, though her expression suggested she thought this was a waste of time. Sarah placed her hands on the control interface and closed her eyes, extending her senses beyond the ship's hull. There, faint as starlight, but unmistakable. The bright fortune had passed this way, but not alone. Sarah could sense the quantum wake of other ships, moving in formation, and something else, a signature, unlike anything in the databases. "There were 7 ships," Sarah said quietly, her eyes still closed. The bright fortune and 6 others moving together. They changed course here. Heading. She turned slowly, following the trail only she could see, toward the Kepler Nebula. Dr. Orcs checked his instruments. "Impossible. Our sensors detect no trace of multiple vessels." Sarah opened her eyes and met Kazara's gaze. "Your sensors are looking for the wrong things. The trails are there, but they're not where you expect them to be." Commander Murdoch studied her carefully. "Show me." Sarah moved to the navigation console and began inputting coordinates. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface as she translated what she could sense into mathematical values the ship's computer could understand. The star chart updated, showing a projected course that curved through empty space toward the distant nebula. "This doesn't follow any known shipping routes," Commander Murdoch observed, studying the display. "Why would the bright fortune deviate so far from the standard lanes?" "They didn't choose to," Sarah said, her voice growing more confident as the pieces fell into place. "Something forced them off course. But it wasn't an attack, not the way we'd expect. The quantum signatures show controlled movement, like they were being escorted." Kazara's multifaceted eyes shifted to examine the new course projection. "Even if your theory is correct, the Kepler Nebula spans 12 light-years. Searching it would take months with conventional methods." Dr. Orcs stroked his scaled chin thoughtfully. "The nebula's electromagnetic interference would also mask most sensor readings. It's an ideal place to hide something you don't want found." "Then that's where we're going," Murdoch decided. "Lay in a course for the nebula's outer edge. We'll see what Miss Chen's unusual tracking methods can find." As the starbound adjusted course and jumped back into faster-than-light travel, Sarah retreated to the small cabin she'd been assigned. The room was barely large enough for a bunk and a small desk, but it felt like a sanctuary after the tension on the bridge. She activated her personal tablet and began reviewing everything the Academy had taught her about the Kepler Nebula. The official records described it as a stellar nursery where new stars were being born from vast clouds of gas and dust. The electromagnetic radiation from forming stars made traditional sensors nearly useless inside the nebula's boundaries. Most ships avoided the region entirely, taking longer routes that bypassed its interference zone. But Sarah could sense things that electronic instruments couldn't detect. The trails she followed existed in quantum space, unaffected by electromagnetic radiation or physical barriers. If the missing ships were hidden somewhere in the nebula, she would be able to track them no matter what was blocking conventional sensors. 3 hours later, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the nebula's outer rim. Through the viewports, Sarah could see a wall of swirling purple and gold clouds that stretched across the horizon. Lightning danced between the gas formations as magnetic fields interacted with charged particles. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Sensors are immediately degraded, Dr. Oresh reported. Electromagnetic interference is off the charts. We're essentially flying blind. Commander Murdoch looked at Sarah. This is your show now. Where do we go? Sarah closed her eyes again and extended her enhanced senses into the nebula. The trails were still there, but fainter now. Twisted by the gravitational effects of the forming stars, she could see where the 7 ships had entered the cloud formation, following a specific path that avoided the most dangerous areas. There's a corridor through the interference, she said, pointing toward a section that looked identical to the rest of the nebula wall. The ships went that way. Someone who knew this region very well was guiding them. The starbound moved deeper into the nebula, following Sarah's directions through passages between electromagnetic storms. The journey took hours, with Sarah constantly adjusting their course to follow the fading quantum signatures she could detect. As they traveled deeper into the nebula, something began to bother her. The trails they were following were too precise, too carefully planned. This wasn't the random path of ships fleeing pirates or trying to escape pursuit. Someone had deliberately brought the missing vessels here, following a predetermined route. Commander, she said finally, I don't think the crews of these ships were prisoners. The paths show voluntary compliance, like they were following instructions. Kizara looked up from her sensor station. Are you suggesting the disappearances were staged? I'm not sure yet. But the quantum signatures don't match what we'd expect from ships under duress. Sarah paused, studying the data more carefully. There's something else. The escort ships that were traveling with the cargo vessels, their signatures are unlike anything in the galactic databases. Dr. Oresh's expression grew troubled. Unknown ship designs could indicate contact with a species not yet catalogued by the Galactic Council. That would be a significant development. Commander Murdoch checked their position on the star chart. How much deeper do these trails lead? Sarah concentrated, following the fading signatures through the electromagnetic maze. Another 6 hours at current speed. But Commander, there's something waiting at the end. A large concentration of quantum signatures. Much bigger than just the missing ships. A base of some kind? Maybe. Or a fleet. Sarah's enhanced senses were picking up details that made her increasingly uneasy. Whatever it is, it's been there for months. This isn't a temporary hiding place. They continued through the nebula's twisted passages, past forming stars that blazed like cosmic beacons, and around gas clouds that could have swallowed entire worlds. Sarah guided them with growing precision as they drew closer to their destination. But her confidence was being replaced by a deep sense of foreboding. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of careful navigation, they emerged into a pocket of relatively calm space near the nebula's heart. What they found waiting for them defied explanation. Dozens of ships floated in a precise formation around a massive artificial structure. The ships were a mixture of designs from across the galaxy: cargo haulers, passenger liners, even a few military escorts. All of them should have been reported as missing or destroyed, but it was the structure at the center of the formation that made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. It looked like a space station, but built with technology that seemed decades ahead of anything the known species had developed. Sleek curves replaced angular construction, and its hull seemed to bend light around itself in ways that hurt to look at directly. My God, Commander Murdoch whispered. What is that thing? Dr. Oresh was frantically working his sensor controls. I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the station, but the readings don't match any known power source. The electromagnetic pattern is completely alien. Kizara's voice was tight with concern. Commander, we're being scanned. Something knows we're here. Before Murdoch could respond, the communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfectly accented galactic standard, but with an undertone that suggested it wasn't the speaker's native language. Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Reduce speed and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Sarah felt every muscle in her body tense. The quantum signature of the voice's source was unlike anything she'd ever encountered. Not quite alien, but not matching any known species either. Commander Murdoch activated the response channel. This is Commander Murdoch of the Galactic Council vessel Starbound. Identify yourself and state your authority for claiming jurisdiction in this region. The response came after a pause that suggested consultation with others. We are representatives of the Advancement Coalition. This space has been designated for important research that benefits all galactic civilizations. Your presence here threatens that work. Sarah grabbed Commander Murdoch's arm. That's not true, she whispered urgently. The quantum signatures from those ships show distress, not cooperation. The crews didn't come here voluntarily. Kazara had managed to enhance their sensor readings despite the interference. Commander, I'm detecting life signs on many of those vessels, but they're confined to specific areas. It looks like the crews are being held in cargo bays or detention areas. The alien voice spoke again, with more authority this time. You have 30 seconds to comply with boarding procedures, or we will consider you a hostile threat. Commander Murdoch looked around the bridge at his team. Sarah could see the calculation in his eyes. They were one small ship against dozens of vessels and a space station with unknown capabilities. But 47 beings from the Bright Fortune alone were being held prisoner, along with potentially thousands more from the other missing ships. Dr. Oresh, can you get a message through the electromagnetic interference to Galactic Council space? Murdoch asked. Negative, Commander. The nebula is blocking all long-range communications. Sarah stood up from her station, her mind racing through possibilities. Commander, I might be able to help, but I need you to trust me completely. What do you have in mind? The quantum signatures I've been tracking don't just show where things have been, they also show where they're going. Sarah moved to the navigation console. I can map the patrol routes of their ships, predict where their sensors have gaps, even track the movement patterns of individual crew members on that station. Kazara stared at her. That's impossible. Quantum signatures fade within hours for biological entities, not for me. Sarah met her gaze steadily. I can see things that your instruments can't detect, patterns that exist in quantum space itself. But if I do this, everyone will know that humans have abilities we've been keeping secret. The 20-second mark passed, and weapon signatures began appearing on their sensors as the alien ships powered up their armament systems. Commander Murdoch made his decision. Do it. Sarah placed both hands on the navigation interface and closed her eyes. Instead of the gentle probing she'd done before, she opened her enhanced senses completely, reaching out through quantum space to map everything within 50 kilometers of their position. The sensation was overwhelming. Every living being on every ship blazed in her perception, like stars against darkness. She could see the alien crews moving through their vessels, could track their patrol schedules, could even sense the emotional states of the prisoners held in the cargo bays. Fear, confusion, despair, but also hope. Because somehow they knew rescue might be coming. There, she said, her voice strained with effort. 17 patrol ships following predictable routes. A gap in their sensor coverage opening in 4 minutes. We can reach the prisoner ships without being detected if we follow this exact course. She uploaded the navigation data directly from her mind to the ship's computer, a feat that should have been impossible without cybernetic implants. Sarah, Dr. Orish said quietly, how are you doing this? Later, she replied, sweat beading on her forehead. Commander, we need to move now. The window only lasts 8 minutes. The Starbound accelerated toward the fleet of captured ships, following a path that threaded between sensor arrays and patrol routes with mathematical precision. Sarah continued to monitor the quantum signatures around them, making micro-adjustments to their course as she tracked the movement of every potential threat. They reached the Bright Fortune without triggering any alarms. The cargo vessel hung motionless in space, its engines dark, and its crew trapped aboard their own ship. Kazara, can you slice their communication systems? Murdoch asked. Already working on it, the Queth replied. Their security is sophisticated but not impenetrable. A few minutes later, Captain Reeves's voice crackled through their speakers. The relief in his tone was unmistakable. Starbound, please tell me you're really Galactic Council. Confirmed, Captain. What's your status? My crew is alive but confined to the cargo holds. These aliens call themselves the Advancement Coalition. But they're not interested in advancement, they're harvesting technology and biological samples from every species they can capture. Sarah felt sick. They're using the missing ships as a source of specimens for experimentation. Captain Reeves continued his report. They've been questioning us about human capabilities, especially about our sensory abilities and pattern recognition skills. They seem particularly interested in how we navigate and track things. Commander Murdoch looked at Sarah meaningfully. Did you tell them anything? No, sir, but they've been scanning us with some kind of neural probe. I don't know how much they've learned. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. If these aliens had discovered human tracking abilities through their prisoners, they would want to capture her specifically. Her enhanced senses made her valuable in ways that could endanger not just herself, but all of humanity. "Commander," she said urgently, "we need to evacuate these ships immediately. But there's a problem. My quantum signatures are different from normal humans, much more distinctive. If they've been studying Captain Reeves and his crew, they'll recognize what I am the moment they scan me." Kizara looked up from her communication interface. "I've established contact with 6 other prisoner ships. Total count is over 300 beings from 47 different species. But moving that many people will take time we don't have." Sarah closed her eyes and extended her senses again, mapping the patrol patterns one more time. "There's another gap opening in their coverage in 6 minutes, but it only lasts 3 minutes, and it won't happen again for hours. 3 minutes to evacuate 300 people?" Dr. Orcs shook his head. "Impossible. Not if we're clever about it." Sarah pulled up the tactical display. "Most of these ships still have functional engines and life support. We don't need to evacuate the crews, we need to help them escape on their own vessels." Commander Murdoch caught on immediately. "You want to stage a breakout. Use the gap in their patrol coverage to help the captured ships make a run for it." "Exactly. But someone needs to stay behind to coordinate the escape and ensure everyone gets out. The aliens can't be allowed to follow the refugees, and they definitely can't be allowed to capture me." The bridge fell silent as everyone realized what Sarah was suggesting. She was volunteering to remain behind, to face an unknown enemy that had been specifically hunting for someone with her abilities. "Absolutely not," Commander Murdoch said firmly. "We don't leave team members behind." Sarah turned to face him, and for the first time since joining the team, her voice carried complete confidence. "With respect, Commander, this isn't your choice to make. Those people have been prisoners for months because these aliens are hunting my species. If I don't face them now, they'll keep capturing humans until they find what they're looking for." "What exactly are they looking for?" Kizara asked. Sarah took a deep breath. It was time to tell the truth about what humans really were. "They're looking for us," she said simply. "Humans. All of us. Because we're not just another species that learned to build spaceships. We're something the galaxy has never seen before." She gestured toward the alien space station, its impossible curves bending light around its hull. "That technology looks advanced, but it's based on principles the galactic community has known for centuries. All the major species developed along similar paths. They learned to manipulate matter and energy, to travel between stars, to communicate across vast distances." Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully. "But humans evolved something else. We developed the ability to perceive and track through quantum space itself. We can see patterns that exist beyond normal reality, follow trails that leave no physical evidence, predict behavior by reading probability streams that most species don't even know exist." Dr. Orish's eyes widened with understanding. "That's how you've been tracking through the nebula. You're not using our sensors at all." "The sensors confirm what I already know," Sarah admitted. "But I could have guided us here with my eyes closed and all instruments dead. Every human has this ability to some degree, but most never realize it. We think of it as intuition, or luck, or just being good at reading people." Commander Murdoch stared at her. "You're saying the entire human species has psychic abilities?" "Not psychic, quantum perceptive. We evolved on a world where survival required understanding patterns that couldn't be seen or measured directly, tracking prey through dense forests, predicting weather changes, reading the intentions of other humans through subliminal cues. Over millions of years, we developed brains that could process quantum information as easily as visual or auditory input." Kizara's voice was filled with awe. "That's why your test scores were so high. You weren't guessing or calculating, you were actually seeing the correct answers. And that's why these aliens are kidnapping humans," Sarah concluded. "They've realized that we can perceive things that no other known species can detect. We're not just new members of the galactic community, we're potentially the most powerful species anyone has ever encountered." The communication system crackled again, and the alien voice returned. "Unknown vessel. You have been detected in our security perimeter. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." Through the viewports, they could see the patrol ships changing course, converging on their position with deadly intent. Sarah moved to the airlock controls. Get those ships ready to run, Commander. I'm going over to the station. Sarah, no, Dr. Orish called out. We don't even know if their atmosphere is compatible with human life. She paused at the airlock door, her hand on the control panel. It doesn't matter. This was always going to end with me facing them. The only question is whether I do it alone or with 300 innocent people still trapped here. Commander Murdoch stepped forward. If you're determined to do this, then we do it right. Kazara, get those ships ready to jump to safety the moment the gap opens. Dr. Oresh, prepare a data package with everything we've learned about this operation. If we don't make it out, the Galactic Council needs to know what they're dealing with. He turned to Sarah. As for you, you're not going over there alone. This is still my mission, and these are still my crew to protect. Sarah shook her head. Commander, with respect, you can't do what I can do. If this goes wrong, someone needs to survive to warn the Council about human abilities. Then we better make sure it doesn't go wrong. Murdoch's expression was grim but determined. What's our play? Sarah closed her eyes one more time, mapping the quantum signatures throughout the enemy formation. When she opened them, she was smiling, not the shy, uncertain smile she'd worn at the academy, but the confident expression of someone who had finally stopped hiding what they truly were. We're going to show them exactly why humans are the most dangerous species they've ever encountered. Sarah activated the ship's external communication array, broadcasting on all frequencies that the alien coalition would be monitoring. When she spoke, her voice carried none of the hesitation or uncertainty that had marked her time at the academy. This is Sarah Chen of the Galactic Council vessel Starbound, addressing the Advancement Coalition. You have 5 minutes to release all prisoners and withdraw from this region. If you comply, no action will be taken against your forces. The response came quickly, filled with what sounded like amusement. One small scout ship against our entire fleet? Your species' reputation for irrationality appears to be well-founded. You've been studying humans for months, Sarah replied. Tell me what you've learned about our capabilities. A longer pause this time, suggesting consultation among the alien leaders. We have observed remarkable sensory acuity and pattern recognition abilities among your species. These traits make humans valuable for certain types of work. Sarah felt anger building in her chest. Valuable for work. These beings saw her entire species as tools to be harvested and enslaved. You've only scratched the surface. Would you like a demonstration of what humans can really do? Commander Murdoch was watching her carefully. Sarah, what are you planning? Instead of answering, Sarah placed her hands on the ship's sensor array and opened her enhanced perception completely. The sensation was unlike anything she'd experienced before. Instead of tracking single trails or mapping local patterns, she reached out through quantum space to observe the entire region of the nebula. Every ship, every energy signature, every living being within 100 light-years blazed in her awareness like a three-dimensional map made of starlight. She could see the patrol routes, the weapon placements, the exact position of every prisoner on every captured vessel. But more than that, she could see the underlying structure that connected everything. Dr. Orish, she said, her voice distant as she processed the overwhelming flood of information. Activate the emergency beacon array. Set it to broadcast a distress signal on all Galactic Council frequencies. Sarah, we're inside a nebula. The electromagnetic interference will block any signal from reaching. Trust me. Sarah's perception expanded further, reaching beyond the boundaries of the nebula to map the quantum pathways that connected this region to the rest of galactic space. There's a relay station 17 light-years away. If we modulate the beacon frequency to match the quantum resonance patterns I'm detecting, the signal will punch through the interference. Dr. Oresh's claws clicked rapidly over his controls. The calculations would take hours to verify. I'm uploading the exact parameters now. Sarah transferred the information directly from her quantum perception to the ship's computer. Another impossible feat that made both Kizara and Dr. Oresh stare in amazement. The beacon activated, and its signal vanished into the swirling electromagnetic chaos of the nebula. To conventional sensors, it appeared to be absorbed by the interference immediately, but Sarah could see its quantum signature following the pathways she'd mapped, reaching across space toward the distant relay station. Signal transmitted, Dr. Oresh confirmed. But how did you? Because that's what humans do, Sarah interrupted, her perception continuing to expand. We see patterns that exist in quantum space itself. We navigate by reading probability streams that other species can't detect, and when we need to, we can manipulate those patterns directly. The alien voice returned, but now it carried a note of concern. "What are you doing, human?" Sarah smiled, though her eyes remained closed as she maintained her expanded awareness. "I'm showing you why kidnapping my species was the worst mistake your coalition ever made." She reached out through quantum space, locating the specific patterns that governed the alien ship's navigation systems. Every vessel in the fleet followed predictable routes based on their computer programming, but those programs operated within the same quantum framework that Sarah could perceive and manipulate. One by one, she began introducing tiny variations into their navigation algorithms. Nothing dramatic, just small adjustments that would accumulate over time, causing their patrol routes to gradually shift away from the prisoner ships. Commander Murdoch was watching his tactical display with growing amazement. "The enemy patrol patterns are changing. They're opening up corridors of escape that weren't there before." "Coincidence," Kizara murmured, but her voice suggested she didn't believe it. Sarah's perception reached deeper into the alien systems, mapping the quantum signatures of their power cores and weapon arrays. The technology was advanced, but it still operated according to the fundamental laws of physics that governed quantum interactions. And those laws were something Sarah could read as easily as words on a page. "Their main power distribution network has a critical vulnerability," she announced, uploading another set of impossible calculations to the ship's tactical computer. "If we target these specific nodes with coordinated strikes, we can cascade failures throughout their entire fleet." Commander Murdoch studied the targeting data. "This would require precision beyond anything our weapon systems can achieve." "Not with conventional targeting," Sarah agreed. "But I can guide each shot through quantum space, adjusting their trajectories in real time to compensate for electromagnetic interference and defensive countermeasures." The alien coalition commander spoke again, and this time there was no mistaking the tension in his voice. "You will cease your activities immediately or we will open fire on all prisoner vessels." Sarah felt the weight of 300 lives depending on her next decision. Through her expanded awareness, she could sense the fear and hope of the captives, the confusion of the alien crews as their systems began malfunctioning, and the growing panic among the coalition leaders as they realized they were facing something they'd never encountered before. "Kizara," she said quietly, "how quickly can you establish communication links with all the prisoner ships simultaneously?" "Simultaneously?" "The bandwidth requirements would be enormous, and the electromagnetic interference. I can provide carrier wave modulation that will punch through the interference. Please, I need you to trust me." Kizara's multifaceted eyes shifted to study Sarah's confident expression. After a moment, she nodded and began configuring the communication array according to the parameters Sarah provided. "All prisoner ships, this is the Starbound," Sarah broadcast. "Prepare for immediate evacuation. When I give the signal, activate your engines and follow the navigation coordinates I'm about to transmit." Captain Reeves's voice crackled through the interference. "Starbound, our engines have been sabotaged. We can't achieve faster than light velocity." Sarah had already sensed that problem and had a solution ready. "I'm transmitting repair procedures that will restore basic functionality. The sabotage was designed to prevent you from escaping. But the aliens made a crucial error. They didn't account for someone who could see the quantum signatures of their modifications." As she uploaded the repair data, Sarah continued to manipulate the patrol patterns of the alien fleet. Ships that should have been guarding escape routes found themselves investigating false sensor contacts on the opposite side of the formation. Weapon systems that should have been tracking the prisoner vessels instead locked onto phantom targets that existed only in their modified programming. "This is impossible," the alien commander declared. "No species has the capability to interfere with our systems at this level." "That's because no species you've encountered evolved the way humans did," Sarah replied, her voice carrying the full confidence of someone who finally understood her true potential. "You've been studying us for months, but you still don't comprehend what we really are." Through her quantum perception, she could see the coalition leaders gathering in the central station's command center. Fear radiated from them like heat from a star, not the simple fear of defeat, but the deeper terror of encountering something that challenged their fundamental understanding of reality. "We evolved on a world where survival meant reading patterns that couldn't be measured or detected by conventional means," Sarah continued, "tracking prey through environments where they left no physical traces. predicting weather systems by sensing quantum fluctuations in atmospheric pressure, understanding the intentions of other intelligent beings by reading the probability streams of their potential actions. She paused, letting that information sink in. Every human child learns to navigate by quantum perception before they can walk properly. We call it intuition, but it's actually the ability to process information that exists in space-time itself. Commander Murdoch was watching the tactical display with growing excitement. Sarah, their formation is completely disrupted. The prisoner ships have clear escape routes opening up. Dr. Orish, have you received any response to our distress beacon? The Xanthorian physicist checked his instruments. Affirmative. I'm detecting the quantum signatures of multiple Galactic Council vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the nebula's edge. Estimated arrival time is 43 minutes. The alien commander's response was immediate and desperate. All ships, open fire on the escaped prisoners. Destroy them before they can reach Council forces. But Sarah had anticipated this order. As the alien weapons powered up, she reached through quantum space to introduce systematic errors into their targeting systems. Energy beams that should have struck fleeing ships instead dissipated harmlessly into empty space. Guided missiles found themselves chasing sensor ghosts that led them away from their intended targets. Impossible, the alien commander shouted. How are you doing this? Sarah opened her eyes for the first time in over an hour, and Commander Murdoch was startled to see that they were glowing with a faint silver light, a visible manifestation of her quantum perception, operating at full capacity. You made one critical error in your study of humanity, she said, her voice carrying across all communication frequencies. You assumed we were just another species that happened to develop advanced technology. But we're not. We're something the galaxy has never seen before, a species that evolved to perceive and manipulate quantum reality directly. Through the viewports, they could see the prisoner ships breaking away from the alien formation, their engines restored to full functionality by Sarah's repair protocols. The Bright Fortune led the escape, its crew free after months of captivity. Every human has these abilities to some degree, Sarah continued. Most of us never realize our full potential because we don't need it in normal circumstances. But when we do need it, when our survival or the survival of others depends on it, we can do things that would seem like magic to species that perceive only conventional reality. The alien commander made one final attempt to salvage the situation. If you allow us to withdraw peacefully, we will release all remaining prisoners. Sarah's quantum perception showed her the lie immediately. The coalition forces were preparing to retreat, but they intended to take several of the most valuable prisoners with them, including human crew members they could study further. I have a counteroffer, she replied. You will release all prisoners immediately, transfer your research data on human capabilities to our computers, and submit to Galactic Council Authority for processing. In return, I won't demonstrate the more destructive applications of human quantum manipulation. Destructive applications? Kazara whispered. Sarah's expression was grim. The same quantum fields that let us track and navigate also control the fundamental forces that hold matter together. If I wanted to, I could destabilize the molecular bonds in their ship hulls, or create cascade failures in their reactor cores, or simply translate their entire fleet into a parallel quantum state, where they'd be effectively erased from normal space-time. The bridge fell silent as the implications of that statement sank in. Sarah wasn't just talking about advanced sensory abilities, she was describing power on a scale that could reshape reality itself. Dr. Orish spoke carefully. Sarah, are you saying that humans could pose a threat to all galactic civilization if we chose to? That's exactly what I'm saying, Sarah confirmed. And that's why the Galactic Council needs to understand what humanity really represents. We're not just another member species seeking our place among the stars. We're potentially the most powerful force the galaxy has ever encountered. The alien commander's response came after a long pause. We will comply with your demands. Our research data is being transmitted now, and all prisoners will be released immediately. Sarah monitored the data transfer through her quantum perception, ensuring that the aliens weren't holding anything back or transmitting false information. The research files revealed the full scope of their operation: dozens of missing ships, hundreds of prisoners from multiple species, and months of experimentation aimed at understanding and replicating human sensory abilities. Most disturbing was their ultimate goal. The Coalition had planned to use their understanding of human capabilities to develop quantum manipulation weapons that would give them dominance over all known civilizations. "Commander," Sarah said, "we need to ensure this research never falls into the wrong hands. The techniques they've developed could be used to exploit human abilities for conquest rather than peaceful exploration." Commander Murdoch nodded grimly. "Agreed. Dr. Oresh, can you add a quantum encryption lock to that data? Something that only authorized Council researchers can access?" "Already working on it," the Zenthorian replied. "Though I suspect our Miss Chen could break any encryption we might devise." Sarah smiled, the first genuinely relaxed expression she'd worn since boarding the ship. "That's the point, Dr. Orish. Humans need to be involved in any research into our own abilities. We're the only ones qualified to determine how this knowledge should be used." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity as Galactic Council forces arrived and took control of the situation. The alien coalition surrendered without further resistance, their leaders apparently shocked into submission by their encounter with capabilities they hadn't imagined possible. Captain Reeves and his crew were among the first to be evacuated, and their debriefing revealed the full horror of what the coalition had planned. The aliens had been conducting systematic experiments on members of different species, trying to understand the biological basis for various cognitive abilities. Their ultimate goal was to create artificial enhancers that would grant their own species the advantages they'd observed in others. But it was their research into human subjects that had yielded the most dramatic results. Even with limited understanding, they'd managed to develop devices that could amplify human quantum perception to dangerous levels. In the wrong hands, those devices could turn any human into a weapon capable of devastating entire star systems. As the rescued prisoners were transferred to medical ships and the alien technology was secured by Council forces, Sarah found herself alone on the bridge of the Starbound. The silver glow had faded from her eyes, but she could still feel the expanded awareness hovering at the edge of her consciousness, a reminder that she would never again be the shy, hidden girl who had sat in the back of Academy lecture halls. Commander Murdoch joined her at the viewport, where they watched the Council fleet organizing for the return journey. "So what happens now?" he asked. "The galaxy knows about human capabilities. There's no going back to being just another species among many." Sarah considered the question carefully. "I think that was always going to happen eventually. Humans are too curious, too driven to explore and understand. Someone would have discovered our true nature sooner or later. But now it's public knowledge. Every civilization in the galaxy will want to study us, recruit us, or potentially see us as a threat." "Maybe," Sarah agreed, "but they'll also want us as allies. The abilities that make humans potentially dangerous also make us invaluable for exploration, research, and peacekeeping. We can track criminals across interstellar distances, predict the outcomes of complex negotiations, even detect threats that conventional sensors can't perceive." Kazara approached them, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the starlight from the nebula's glowing clouds. "Sarah, I owe you an apology. When I first met you, I saw only a young human, with impressive test scores. I had no idea that your entire species possessed abilities that could reshape our understanding of reality itself." Sarah turned to face her. "That's the thing about humans, Kazara. We're not impressive because we're individually powerful. We're impressive because we're collectively adaptable. Every human responds to challenges differently, sees patterns from a unique perspective, solves problems in ways that surprise even other humans." Dr. Oresh joined the group, his expression thoughtful. "The implications for scientific research are staggering. With human quantum perception, we could map dark matter distributions, predict stellar formation patterns, even develop new theories about the nature of space-time itself." "That's exactly what I'm hoping for," Sarah said. "The galaxy has a lot of unsolved mysteries. Maybe it's time for humans to help provide some answers." Commander Murdoch checked his chronometer. "Council Command wants a full briefing as soon as we return to the Academy. They're particularly interested in your recommendations for how to integrate human capabilities into existing Council operations." Sarah nodded, but her attention was already turning to the larger questions raised by their mission. The alien coalition had been just one group seeking to exploit human abilities. There would be others, some potentially more dangerous and certainly more subtle in their approach. "We'll need new protocols for protecting human citizens," she mused. "Training programs to help people understand their own capabilities. Research initiatives to explore the full potential of quantum perception. And probably most important, ethical guidelines to ensure that human abilities are used for exploration and peacekeeping, rather than conquest or oppression. Sounds like you've got your work cut out for you, Commander Murdoch observed. Sarah smiled, thinking about the academy classes she'd been so eager to hide in just days before. Actually, I think this is going to be the most interesting assignment any human has ever had. As the Starbound prepared to leave the nebula, Sarah took one last look at the swirling clouds of gas and dust where new stars were being born. It seemed appropriate somehow. Humanity's emergence into galactic prominence felt like the birth of something equally fundamental and transformative. She closed her eyes and extended her quantum perception one more time, mapping the pathways they would follow back to Council space. But instead of just tracking their route home, she let her awareness expand to encompass the vast network of quantum signatures that connected every inhabited system in the galaxy. Somewhere out there, other humans were going about their daily lives, unaware that everything had just changed. Students attending classes, researchers exploring new theories, explorers pushing the boundaries of known space, all of them carrying abilities that could reshape the understanding of reality itself. The shy girl from the back of the lecture hall was gone forever. In her place stood someone who would help guide humanity's emergence as the galaxy's most remarkable species, not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they were the only ones who could see the hidden patterns that connected all things. Sarah opened her eyes and began plotting the course home. They had prisoners to deliver, reports to file, and a galaxy to introduce to the true potential of the human species. But first, they had to get back to the academy. After all, she still had classes to attend, though she suspected the curriculum was about to change dramatically. As the Starbound jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving the nebula and its secrets behind, Sarah allowed herself one moment of quiet satisfaction. The most relentless tracker ever recorded had just proven that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that looks completely harmless. Humanity was about to take its place among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.